Welcome to Dwell Awhile, a series of podcasts produced by Dwell Time in partnership with the Yorkshire Visual Arts Network. For this series, we invite peer-nominated artists to talk to us about their art practice, the contentiously uncritical term resilience, mental well-being, and the impact of COVID-19 on their practice. This series begins with conversations with artists featured in the YVAN and Corridor 8 2019 publication Resilience is Futile, for which Dwell Time co-founder Alice Bradshaw was writer in residency. We invite the original Resilience is Futile artists back to talk to us about how they have been since the publication and ask each artist to further recommend an artist or artists to talk to. In this way, we look to map out a network of visual artists working across the region with a diversity and parallels of practice, collaboration and so-called resilience.
Hello, I'm here with Bryan Tweddle, one of the original Resilience is Futile publication artists. Would you like to introduce your practice?
Yes, I can do that. I have quite a varied practice. It has a degree of being centered on a three-dimensional sculptural making practice, but in fact it's much more diverse than that. I work in education, I work in festivals, I work in directing festivals, in collaborations for film. In fact, I would suggest I work collaboratively on a wide range of activities, from museums and idea development. So it allows me to keep active, I think, across a wide range of activities.
Fantastic. And how have you been since we last talked for the Resilience is Futile publication?
Well, I suppose it falls into two halves. It was about a year ago that I think when we last spoke. And for half of that year, I was very busy. A lot of it was in Europe. I was directing a festival in Luxembourg, a traditional festival. So that was over a 6-month period I was developing that, which would have been on the 1st of June. That was in fact cancelled. I was also working in Maastricht Art University, developing a project to illuminate a museum that's sited in an ancient castle in Luxembourg City. That was a very exciting project. That was completed. Also, I think one of the things that I would say about my practice is that one thing leads to another, generally speaking, rather than applying for opportunities, although I do that as well. But whilst in Luxembourg, I was also engaged to work with a German artist who lives in France and an Irish artist, develop an idea for a children's museum, or the content for a children's museum. So that was some of the things I was doing. So I have been working also over a number of years with a German artist who lives in Paris. And more recently, a third artist joined us who lives in Dublin. And we've been working on the content of a new children's museum being built also in Luxembourg.
Fantastic.
That's an exciting project.
Yes.
So at the beginning of, or rather the middle of February this year, I was working in Luxembourg on that project where we were developing content for a miniature children's theatre using hand puppets. And then I was also speaking at a trans-European art education seminar that was in another city of Esch al Zet. That was about 3 days before lockdown. So as soon as that finished, I more or less raced back actually as quick as I could on the train. Every piece of work that I was working on stopped, every opportunity stopped, and really I had to address because I'd been away for a month prior to that, I needed to just address the practicalities of locking down and all of that, all of what that meant. I think for about 3 months, I more or less just cooked and the weather was nice, as everyone remembers, so cooked, gardened, and generally did a lot of online contact with friends, and that kept the enjoyment available, actually. So that wasn't too bad. The critical things that happened, I think, were that I'd already done some work which I was paid for. I then, because I was paying, workshop rates to the council, I was eligible for the government help assistance, which was absolutely amazing, actually, because I wasn't expecting any assistance at all. So that's allowed me to keep my workshop, although I haven't really used it at all. It's allowed me to keep it.
Yeah. Was that the government self-employment grant that you got?
Yes,
yeah.
It was, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So that was just absolutely amazing, really. It's saved my bacon, and I'm sure it's saved a lot of other people in the same situation, because the bills were still racing out.
Yeah.
And this really took away that pressure it's taken it up until now, really. It's taken that sort of strain. I mean, it's obviously made a difference of what one can do, but there again, if you can't do very much and you're sitting in the house, it's a kind of an economical way of existing anyway. So, having said that, I've more or less gone into a resigned state. But in this last 3 or 4 weeks, there seems to be some green shoots appearing, and I have 3 points of interest now that have occurred. I don't know if they'll all happen, but I certainly think 1 will definitely happen, and 2 or 3 may happen as well. So it feels as though things are beginning to wake up a little bit. So I know things can change again, but that's currently where I am, really. I think beyond that, I think how to maybe adjust my outgoings is something that I'm looking at the moment, rather than paying for a workshop that's lying dormant for half of the year on this occasion. I think maybe there has to be a different method, whether it's a shipping container full of all my things that I just take out, rent week by week as I need it. I don't know. The thought processes are still turning on that one.
So you've not particularly been in your workshop for the last sort of 6 months, is that right? You've not.
Yeah. That's correct. I've not been in my workshop, apart from trying to sort it a little bit. I did spend about 3 weeks trying to rationalize the treasure that's in there.
Yeah.
Which amounts to just moving it around.
Yeah.
putting it in different piles. So it was kind of I don't know whether it was a need to be active in the workshop, but I more or less just tried to see what was there and see how it just be rationalized a little bit more.
Yeah. So lockdown has stalled your practice, would you say? Kind of put a bit of a hiatus, or certain parts of it?
I think it stalled it. Well, it completely stalled it at the beginning. That I would have been, as I say, I was directing the festival on the 1st of June, which was a big event, really. I had other things in the pipeline. Certainly, the Children's Museum, I'd be busy making for that. There was various things that could have been happening, but everything stopped.
Yeah.
But in some ways, it hasn't felt disastrous. It's almost felt as though, well, it's an opportunity to reflect and just generally position oneself a little bit. I think it still for me, it still relies on there being an active world out there that requires my interventions. It isn't something that I'm not sitting at home painting or making sculpture for my own sake. Although that is something actually that has cropped up. I have thought that maybe that can be my next period of time. I might do more sculpture of my own. I'm not pessimistic about that. I think it might just provide a different avenue for me.
Yeah, certainly. I think that's something I've picked up from artist friends. Is it's been a change in practice and ways of working. It's not necessarily all negative.
Yeah.
And it's about finding a different way of working in the climate we find ourselves, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah. It's well, I mean, I think we probably, one of our approaches is to stay flexible and adapt and adjust to any situation, which normally speaking, it doesn't have a COVID overlay. But in this occasion, we now find ourselves in this really curious situation. And but maybe we're well positioned if we stay healthy to adapt to a changing situation, because effectively that's always the way it's been. It just hasn't been as serious.
Yeah, it's not been such a radical amount of change in a short space of time, has it?
Absolutely, no.
So, even though we live in these really uncertain times, do you have any future plans and anything that you would like to share that you've got in the pipeline?
Well, I've been invited to go to Luxembourg in October. That is for a 2-week workshop development for the Children's Museum I'm working on. I'm kind of at the moment doing nothing about travel arrangements. I'm just going to leave it until the last minute and see how it is.
Yeah.
The only thing that I'm thinking in my head is to remove all the seats from my car and make it into a bed in the footwell of the passenger seat, so that I can remain self-isolating as I drive. And I will drive rather than catch any public transport. So I'll go on the train, the tunnel. So that's kind of the things normally speaking, I would have probably caught the train, but I don't feel like catching public transport at the moment. And I will see if I go. If I don't go, I don't know what the implications will be, but I'll just address that. So that's one thing. I was speaking with John Wassell at Walk the Plank the other day, and we're discussing a device from Manchester Parade that we're going to discuss more in the next weeks. I'm also chatting to a street artist who wants to do some research and development with the sculptor. He's a fire artist, juggler, and wants to work with a sculptor to develop a device again. So both all very exciting and all potentially happening very quickly. So those are my immediate possibilities.
Great, they sound fantastic.
Yeah, I think I imagine I'll be doing stuff in the next few weeks that are related to some of those. I don't know. I mean, I have a degree of optimism that things will happen. Something always happens. Yeah. And it's just keeping food on the table and rent paid effectively. I think that's the big tricky thing. That, as I say, the government did help massively with that, but that's all going to disappear. So if work doesn't trickle in, then I think we're in a different scenario. So
yeah,
that's the question mark ahead of it.
How have you found our European colleagues over in Luxembourg? Like, what's the main differences you've found between Luxembourg and the UK and the impact on the art scenes?
Well, they're quite well funded in Luxembourg. It's a small, fairly wealthy country. I work through contacts in larger organisations that are well established and well funded. So I think the people that within the umbrella of those establishments probably are feeling as though things will begin again, because they provide service. One, for instance, provides a service in the disabled and disadvantaged community. So they, it's a sort of long-standing 30-year-old company. So I don't think there's a sense that it could be closed because of the current situation. It's a needed artistic venture. In terms of their kind of caught between countries, that whose situation seems to be changing. Belgium was quite badly hit. I'm not quite sure how it is at the moment. Germany's on another side, France is on another side, so they can get buffeted a little bit by, the outbreaks as they're occurring on their borders. What I did discover when speaking to someone a couple of weeks ago was that Luxembourg had quite a high rate of whatever the infection. I don't know how they judge the infection rate, but anyhow, it was quite high. But what she said was that every single person in Luxembourg has been tested. So it is an absolutely accurate count of the country's situation. So I think we don't really know what the situation is over here. In my estimation, it just feels like there's a lot of guesstimating going on. Whereas there, at least they'd been very thorough. And I think people there seemed as though things were quite normal, really, but everything had been locked down, but they were opening up again. And it's kind of a version of how we've played it here, but the only thing is that they know exactly what the situation is because every single person has been tested. At least that's the impression I got, anyway.
So the galleries and museums are back open again in Luxembourg, and the arts
I'm not 100% sure. I'm not 100% sure about that, but I would say yes. But I think they are.
Yeah. So in terms of furthering the discussion with the wider community, have you got any questions or discussion points you want to put out there for us to kind of continue the conversation with? Anything that we've already discussed, or something we've not discussed, maybe?
Yeah, I don't think I have any questions as such. I suppose the only thing I would be happy to be part of is the wider approach of collaboration and helping each other. I think is a kind of, even if it's not in a really sort of tangible way, it's, I think, keeping open to communications open. I think that's perhaps the only thing I can offer at this moment, and I'm very happy to be part of that open forum.
Definitely. So I think there might be a question there about how do we keep connected and collaborating.
Yeah.
And something.
Well,
sorry.
I don't know if you're aware of NASA, which is National Street Artists.
NASA, NASA.
Yeah, NASA.
No, I only know the space, the astrological space, NASA.
Yeah, yeah. And they have a really well organized Zoom sort of world that people keep communicating through. So it's not bad. I mean, that works. Seems to work very well. I mean, I'm part of that, but I very rarely join in because it happens on a Wednesday. And in fact, I'm at this current moment in time, I'm back in my old home town area up in the north of Cumbria, and it's there's no signal, so I can't take part in anything like that at the moment. Yeah, I mean, that works well. So there is a Zoom forum example there that could be looked at.
That's great. We can.
I'll send you a link to it.
Oh, thank you. Then we can link it in the podcast. That's great. And do you have any other comments or anything you want to?
No, I think everything is so unknown, isn't it? It's almost difficult to demand to know something because it will change. So I think being reactive day by day, I think, is the way I do things anyway. I just kind of go with one hesitates to say go with the flow.
Yeah.
Because only dead fish go with the flow.
That's a great quote.
So I can't claim to have made that quote up.
So your strategy is very much about being reactive, and
I think one has to stay ultra reactive at this moment in time, because literally things are going to change day by day, and everyone's own practice is going to determine a little bit how they operate. I was in the co-op supermarket the other day behind a lady who I didn't know, but she was talking to the counter, and she was saying she just sold 6 paintings. And she'd gone before I had a chance to catch her up to find out who she was and the paintings were like. But I thought, oh, that was incredibly promising that she'd sold 6 paintings in the last 2 weeks. So it's possible.
It's not all doom and gloom.
Well, no, I mean, the thing is, it's so easy to go down the doom and gloom avenue. And for some people, it's probably totally inescapable. But it's keeping in contact with people and doing something is really useful. Actually, I'm doing a lot of building work and things at the moment, totally unrelated, but it keeps you moving, gets you tired for the end of the day. That actually is quite good. If you go to bed tired, you sleep well.
Yeah, it's really good for mental health as well, to be actively doing something.
Without deliberately intending it that way, it does work that way. I think you feel much happier after having a good stint of, digging and carrying and lifting and things like this, and then you a day of some sort of accomplishment.
Yeah, I think that's really important, isn't it? Just doing something and accomplishing something, even if it's not the core of a practice that was like pre-COVID.
Exactly. Yeah.
You never know where that might lead as well.
You don't. No, it's not necessarily related in any way, but it sort of we did speak about this, I think, last time we spoke about keeping the wheels oiled, and the wheels being almost yourself, so keeping yourself oiled so that you are a bit more ready if and when something presents itself. I think if you don't, the first 3 months I sat down apart from cooking, and I was much less energized in those first 3 months. Second 3 months, I've kind of busied myself, and I feel looser, more sort of ready. I think, really, a bit more relaxed. So I think it's a kind of bit of a cliche to just keep working away, just to keep yourself tuned up a bit. But I think it really does work.
I think that's a perfect place to end it on. And thank you so much for talking to me and being part of this podcast.
It's a pleasure.
Okay then. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Thank you for listening to this Dwell Awhile podcast. Dwell Awhile is a Dwell Time and YVAN collaboration produced and recorded by Alice Bradshaw, Vanessa Haley and Lenny Srama. Edited by Vanessa Haley with graphic design by Ash Armitage. Dwell Time is an award-winning not-for-profit arts publication reflecting on mental well-being, produced and curated by Alice Bradshaw, Vanessa Haley and Lenny Srama, founded in 2018. YVAN is the Yorkshire Visual Arts Network, a voluntary-led organisation managed by part-time freelancers partnered with the Art House. YVAN prioritise individual practitioners and small-scale initiatives, including those that are artist-led. YVAN are funded by Arts Council England through a partnership with the Art House and are part of the National Contemporary Visual Arts Network. These conversations are starting points for which we encourage anyone to get in touch with comments and questions. The views expressed by the artists are their own. This content is covered by a Creative Commons licence. Anyone is free to share, copy and redistribute the material in any medium or format for any purpose. You must credit the artists, Dwell Time and YVAN. Any remixes may not be distributed. Thank you to all the contributing artists for their time and generosity making these podcasts. If you have any comments and questions about any of the Dwell Awhile content, please do send them via our website, dwelltimepress.wordpress.com.